Olas Media. Olas Media presents Cannabis Enlightened. Now here's your host, Dr. Leroy Brady.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another stimulating episode of Cannabis Enlightened. I am your host, Dr. Leroy, and today we have a very special guest, someone who is, and I have to say this with my dignified voice, an official from the city of San Diego. She is in charge of what might be called the controversial department, but she does it with such style and grace. I have never seen her, and I've, been in her presence several times over the last few months without a smile on her face. She is the deputy director of the Cannabis division for the city of San Diego, and she's carrying a heavy load. And if anyone can do it, she can do it. So in a minute, I'm going to have Laura come on and introduce herself to you and talk a little bit about what brought her to this particular job. And maybe she will share with us some of the things she's done before coming to this particular assignment. Laura, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brady. I really appreciate the opportunity today to be on your show.
Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, whenever I ask someone to come on and do an episode, I always kind of wonder, what are they going to say? Do I have to beat them up? But, almost before I got the words out, you were saying, yes, I can do it. I'll do it. And you wanted to come into the studio, which is fantastic. So I want the audience listening to know that Laura Gates is across the table from me, maybe 2.5, 3 feet. So I'm hoping she won't get mad at me because I think her punches, could really knock you out. Laura, what were you doing before you came to this position? Because you've only been in this position for maybe 6 months.
So I started as the deputy director of the Cannabis Business Division in January of this year. I am a native San Diegan, born and raised.
All right.
I had all of my schooling here. I graduated from UCSD with a degree in urban studies and planning in 1996. From there, I decided I wanted to dedicate my life to public service. And so I started with an internship in the mayor's office under land use.
Okay.
And from there, I quickly started working in redevelopment and the planning department. And I was asked where I wanted to work. And I said, I want to be in the mid-city. That is the area that I think is of most interest in the city of San Diego. And I think that is where I could have the most impact. So I was able to begin my career as part of the Mid-City Communities Plan Update, which included City Heights and Eastern area and all sorts of different areas. And from there, I was given really interesting, challenging opportunities, including updating the Barrio Logan Community Plan Update that hadn't been done since 1978.
Wow.
And so I was fortunate to have given that opportunity in that role to really define what new community plan updates would look like under the city's new general plan that was adopted, I think, back in 2008. And that was really an interesting and critical community to be involved in because they had been so disenfranchised. And so I got my feet wet with the Barrio Logan Community Plan Update. I went on to work on the Southeastern and Encanto neighborhoods community plan updates, where I led those, really learning intimately about the community dynamics and their needs and what we needed to, do for the next 20 to 30 years as part of these community plans. Once I completed those, as well as North Park's community plans, I went to go work for council member Georgette Gomez. I became her deputy chief of staff and her chief of policy for land use and housing. And so it was really fascinating to be on the political side of the house and understand and really look at the city from a very comprehensive view. Cannabis was a topic of conversation that we definitely had in the office since it was approved by voters, as we know, in 2016. And during the time we were in office, the city did adopt rules and regulations associated with cannabis and created the program at the time. And so once Council President Gomez left office, I did go out and start my own business in land use. And I was, still interested in coming back to the city. And when the opportunity availed itself to be able to come back and run the cannabis business division, I jumped to it. I applied and I was brought on board.
So you were, and perhaps maybe still are, an entrepreneur.
To a certain degree.
Okay, so you know how the terrain looks on both sides.
Sure, yes.
So you've had to
Absolutely.
deal with the city, and but even before you were dealing with the city as an entrepreneur, you were part of the city.
25 years.
25 years, and then you opened your own business, and they made the call out to you, or you felt like you want to come back into the city, and your very first stop is Deputy Director of the Cannabis Division.
Yes.
Wow.
It was, a great opportunity to be able to bring my experience of knowing many of the disenfranchised communities that have been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, and really hopefully lend my experience to crafting new policies and regulations to really help uplift our communities.
Right.
So I really feel a very strong drive toward that. And I think that I can, act as a conduit for folks who want to, perhaps become more involved in the cannabis universe.
Right. So you know a lot of the struggles as a result of being a business owner. You know some of the struggles that business owners have to deal with when they're working with the city of San Diego or the county. And I think that's very interesting. I wonder if most people know that about you, that you were an entrepreneur. I certainly have put you a little bit higher on the list. And I mean, you were up in the top 5 anyway. So you're moving up there.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, when you were telling us a few minutes ago about your education, one of the things you skipped, and some people are probably listening and to hear, if you are kind of like a native, not kind of like, you're a native San Diegan, what high school did you graduate from?
La Jolla High School.
La Jolla High. So we have a La Jolla High School graduate here. Okay.
Class of 1989.
Okay. Now you will never hear me talk about any class that I'm associated with. but that's great. That's great. Your La Jolla High classmates are like rooting for you now because where you are, what you're doing. And they'll be more apt to listen to this episode.
Possibly. Yeah. I grew up with a bit of a different perspective, though, in La Jolla. I mean, when people think of La Jolla, they think of everyone is very wealthy and well-to-do. My dad left when I was 3, left my mom with the house and $50. And so my mom, as an immigrant, really had a very difficult time, raising me and making sure we had, we had food on the table and, she could make our ends meet. And so she ultimately lost her house in La Jolla. And it was really, really tragic. She became homeless for a year and it was very difficult. And so I say I am a graduate of La Jolla High, and I feel like there's been a lot of benefit to that.
Sure.
And it was a really great education, but I don't want people to perceive me as one of those people who, comes from this place. And
no, not at all.
So
and I don't believe your mother had a hard time with you. I mean, unless you've changed.
Oh, I was a terrible kid.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Okay.
But that's okay.
That's okay. But you turned out better. You're a better kid now.
I turned out better. Yes.
Okay. So now that you're working, you're back with the city, and you've been in this position for 6 months, maybe going on 7. And this is, as I stated on the offset of the episode, a controversial area. I'm willing to bet that when you go out into the community and introduce yourself to people that don't know you and you tell them what you do there, when you tell them you're deputy director of the cannabis division, they like, oh, really?
It's an interesting dynamic. They usually ask me if I get, if I'm able to give them, what is it? Free
samples?
Handouts. Samples. I don't get samples. I absolutely don't get samples.
Funny.
I do think people are really intrigued by cannabis. I think there's a lot of new information coming out, and people see it as not such a terrible vice. They want to know when the federal government is going to deregulate it or, declassify it, reschedule it. They want to have a better understanding why the NFL is using it to, potentially mitigate the impacts of the opioid crisis. They want to understand how our, we are the capital of biotech here in San Diego, right? Like how are our biotech companies using this to create medicinal products? It's really fascinating. And so there's a gamut of folks, and usually it starts with a lot of jokes, but then we start getting into the details of what cannabis regulation looks like. And, folks understanding that the majority, 80% of our market is the legacy market or the illegal market. And they want to know, how do we transform that into more of a legal market? How do we reduce those barriers? How do we get folks who are in the community who are engaging in the illegal market to be able to come and participate in the legal market? And when I'm talking to parents, because I am the mother of 16-year-old twins.
Oh boy.
It's
16-year-old twins.
That's right.
They're both 16.
Oh, yes, they are.
Oh my gosh.
So, but you look at the headlines, and just recently, the student at Cathedral High School who died last year, the football player who was a straight A student who died because they found a pill that someone sent them. I think it was via Instagram or something like that. And so there's this bigger context in the conversation of, kids are getting their hands on all these illicit drugs. How do we stop that? How do we stop that?
And Laura, I find people are mixing things. I remember the incident you're talking about, the pill. And I don't know why people do it, or how they do it, or what they're thinking of, but they seem to move that incident into cannabis, and they don't call it cannabis. They always want to start with either marijuana or weed. And then I have to correct them maybe 5 or 6 times. It's really cannabis. And, that's not the same thing as a fentanyl or some type of opioid derivative. I mean, it's not the same thing.
It's very different.
It's very different. And it's not even a gateway. That's the next thing they want to, but they probably were taking that before they took the pill. No, it's a whole different thing.
Absolutely not.
So maybe you would agree with me that there's a lot of misinformation out there too.
Yes, as part of, and I've heard this very clearly from our constituents, that there is a lot of misinformation out there. And so I think as part of my job is to hopefully create an environment where we can provide better education and information to the public to understand that, recreational cannabis that was approved by the voters in 2016 is available. And if you go through legal sources, then it is tested, it's safe. But if you're still engaging in the illegal market, which is very readily available, then you don't know. You're playing roulette.
Exactly right. You don't know what you're getting.
You don't know what you're getting.
But all you know is that you're getting it at a cheaper price than you would if you went into a legal market. But that's because it doesn't have the controls. It's not tested. Indeed. It's just cheaper.
Yep.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Well, I understand what you're saying, because I encounter some of the same things as I've taught the class and as I talk to people when I go out in the community. And they all want to know about, THC and CBD and, what should I buy and how should I buy it? And I can't give, hard and fast recommendations. I just tell people you need to do your own research. You need to do research. You need to walk into a legal shop and look around, ask people, ask questions. And even if you don't want to buy anything, just say, hey, I don't know anything about cannabis. Can you talk to me about it? And if it is a good shop, it's a legal shop, they will spend time talking to you. Not just because you're a potential customer, but because they believe in the product.
And they're trained.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as the deputy director, what kind of things do you do from in terms of regulating the industry here in San Diego? Do you go out and visit facilities? Do you respond to calls of people that say, hey, there's this cannabis store that just opened next door to me and it looks kind of shady. Can you come out? How do you do things?
So in the city of San Diego, we have 76 available permits for cannabis operators. 36 of those are for cannabis outlets, retail outlets, where a consumer can go in and purchase an item. Then we also have 40 production facility permits, which allow for the growing and manufacturing of cannabis. The 40 are citywide, and they are typically placed in industrial zones. They do have separation requirements, 1,000 feet from sensitive receptors and 100 feet from residential. The cannabis outlets also follow those same rules, with the exception that there's a maximum of 4 allowed per council district. We have 9 council districts, so 4 can be placed. It was cited within those. There are some issues with citing them because of the sensitive use requirements and the zoning requirements. And so it is sometimes challenging. There's some council districts that haven't seen their maximum permits, approved. We have, I believe, about 10 right now that are still sitting on the books that have not been approved. So we have 26 operating outlets. So what we do on a day-to-day basis, and I have a team, we not issue and take forward the conditional use permits. That is what the permit is called, to be able to get an operating license here in the city of San Diego for cannabis. That is, a very long and arduous process to be able to obtain one of those. And it is what is called a discretionary hearing. So it has to go to a hearing body to be approved. And there's has to be findings made and all those kind of things. You can find all this information on our website, which is, you just Google San Diego Cannabis Development Services Department, it should come right up. So we have regulatory and compliance. So we issue the permits, and then we ensure that those permits that have been issued are following whatever parameters are listed within the conditional use permit. So whether that's signage, parking, sales, how many employees can be on the site. I mean, there's a variety of different issue areas that we make sure are in compliance. We do that by doing site visits. And so I do have a compliance officer who regularly goes to each of the cannabis outlets and production facilities to ensure that they are complying with our laws. This is in addition to the state. So the state Department of Cannabis Control has their own entire licensing arm that folks have to be compliant with as well. So we partner on a regular basis with the state of California to go out and do our inspections and make sure that we are having a conversation so we know what everybody is up to and doing.
So this is, I can imagine this is big news to a lot of people, that not just that the city of San Diego has oversight into the cannabis business, but the state does too. So it's, would you say that it's more likely to guarantee that a person is getting a good product?
Yes, I believe so, because you have us making sure that the facilities are meeting all of our building codes and that they're following all of our health and safety rules. The state goes in and they're actually looking at the equipment and testing and making sure that all the equipment that is, extracting or creating the product is meeting the state's requirements. And so it's very rigorous. I mean, I will tell you from my standpoint for what we do and what the state does in conjunction to make sure our legally operating businesses are in compliance and selling a safe product.
So have you had to warn different facilities or close down different facilities here in San Diego?
Have not had to close down any yet. We definitely send out warnings. Typically warnings are really focused on events that may occur, say on 420. If there's outside consumption or there's issues with those kind of things. Signage is a big issue. And so we make sure that they are in compliance with our signage regulations. Which
now, when you say signage, what are the parameters with respect to that?
So for our signage regulations, you can only use the alphabet. You cannot have any symbols or numbers. You can only have 2 colors on your sign. And so it's really, 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 really specific. And there's a certain, I believe, a number of signs that you're allowed to put up. And so, if you're not complying with that, let's say you have the wavy guys out there in the street with
The
your name
balloons.
and the balloons
Yeah.
and this, that, and
Right.
you've got your name everywhere. We're going to come out, we're going to inspect that, and we're going to make sure that, whatever business it is in compliance with
Okay.
their underlying conditional use permit.
And you said something in the beginning, that there is no consumption on site. So if someone goes in and buys a product that, let's say the product they buy is smokable, they
Mhm.
can't come outside and light up.
No.
As you could if you went into a grocery store and you bought a cigarette, and you come outside of the grocery store and you light up. That's permitted, but it's not the same thing with cannabis.
It is not. You're not
Okay.
allowed to consume.
All right. Now, who gets the warning for that? Does the person that is lighting up,
No,
or
it's
does
the business
the
operator.
business? So it's the business's job to say you can't consume this on our premises.
Yes, absolutely.
So how far does that extend? Is that
Well,
the parking lot, or?
I mean, you can't. So when somebody buys product at the business, they cannot consume it on site.
Okay.
So they have to get in their car, and hopefully they're going to drive home,
And then,
and they're going to consume it in their house.
good. That's what I was getting to.
Okay. Yeah. So
Not in the car.
you can't do it in the car. You can't do it in the park. You
All right.
can't do it at school. You have to
Okay.
do it in the privacy of your own home.
Okay. And when you've given these warnings to these various facilities, have they been willing to work with you? Nobody's
Yes.
said, "Hey, why are you, hassling us?"
Well, you get a little bit of that. All right. But generally they come around and they
Okay.
understand that, this is the law.
Okay.
The other big issue that we see is taxes.
Ah,
And I'm really trying to work with our treasurers right now to make the understanding, taxes and auditing very clear to all of our cannabis operators. I think it's going to be really, really, really important when we do create our equity applicant program
Mhm.
that folks really understand what is required from them when they're operating a business and having to remit taxes to our city treasurer.
so you mentioned the word, maybe a term, equity applicants. So that's two words, maybe equity applicants. Maybe some folks aren't aware of what that is. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on? What does that mean, equity applicants?
Sure. So the city was given a $75,000 GoBiz grant from the state of California last year to create an equity assessment report
Okay.
to really understand what equity should be and what it looks like for the city of San Diego in creating a cannabis equity program.
Okay.
So we have embarked on creating this assessment. We are doing both the qualitative and quantitative analysis of the cannabis industry in San Diego. Of cannabis, of how the impacts it's had on the communities,
Right.
mostly of color. And so we hired a consultant to look at our quantitative impacts and really drill down on the criminalization of cannabis in San Diego and look at those numbers and see who was disproportionately affected,
Right.
as well as look at who our current CUP holders are in the cannabis realm. So
CUP.
conditional use permit
Okay.
holders. So who are the business operators right now in the city of San Diego?
Okay.
So looking at that, there's the quantitative side and then the qualitative side, which is how we got to know each other.
Yes.
And that's through the cannabis equity listening sessions, attending your class and speaking, really trying to get in-depth information and knowledge from our residents in the city of San Diego to really understand what it is it would take to overcome barriers. What are the barriers? And overcome those barriers to be able to effectuate change in those communities that have been negatively impacted. So not only just the individual who may want to become a cannabis operator,
Right.
but looking at their families and the communities who have been disenfranchised.
Now, you mentioned the listening sessions, and I've attended a couple of them, and there's one tonight. How many have you had?
So we've had 8 so far. We
Okay.
started a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
We've had them in the evening. We've had them on Saturday morning. We had one on Zoom last night.
Right.
We're really trying to reach as many folks as we can through these equity listening sessions.
Mhm.
So we've hosted them in various parts of the community, Linda Vista, San Ysidro. Tonight is in City Heights,
Mhm.
Southeastern, and Canto. And so we've really tried to spread them around to get different perspectives from our communities.
So in the listening sessions, Laura, what kind of information are you getting from people? Are they aware of what's going on in cannabis, or are they curious about what type of cannabis you're talking about?
So we give a general overview at the beginning of the listening session that talks about the 2016 law.
Okay.
We talk about equity and equality and what that means.
Mhm.
Then we go through a brief overview of the grant parameters, including the quantitative and qualitative data analysis that we're gathering. And then we break out into the question section,
Right.
where we go to our note takers tables and we ask our participants a series of questions.
Mhm.
It's a very much a fluid back and forth
Mhm.
where we're engaging and talking about the barriers and the opportunities and really trying to listen
Mhm.
to the community and what their needs and wants are.
Now, I've been to a couple. What has been the participation in your view? Have a lot of the community participated, or is it just a few isolated people maybe that show up?
So we have our regulars that have attended all of them, and that's great. I think that shows dedication and commitment to
Sure.
this initiative, and I appreciate that. But
Mhm.
I would say, we've had, I would say, good participation in the realm of, impacting folks who probably are working full time and have kids and have schedules. People have been coming out and they've been engaging with us in our dialogue and our conversation.
Okay.
Some have been better attended than others, but we are taking this information and we're going to use it.
Are people concerned with where a cannabis facility or store might be set up, or does that matter to them?
We, from looking at our comments, we really haven't had that conversation.
Hmm.
I think folks are more interested in talking about, equity applicant criteria and
Okay.
those and capital financing and really looking at the bigger issues.
Those are some big issues in terms of the starting a cannabis business. It takes a lot of money, and it's not like doing a silk screening a t-shirt business. I mean, you can't just open it overnight.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and it takes money to do it. So, are you finding that people that are coming out really are looking at when this is going to happen or how it's going to happen?
Many folks are, yeah. They
Okay.
want to see it happen. It should have happened in 2017.
Yeah.
It should have. It
Mhm.
didn't. So now we need to make up for lost time, and we need to get a plan put in place that it will be actionable in 2023.
Okay, so you said that we said together, we agreed that there is one last listening session this evening. So once that concludes, do you then start crunching the numbers and writing?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So we have a partner. It's called the People Lab up at UC Berkeley, who will be taking all of our listening session notes
Mhm.
and will be crunching that information to really pull out the themes. And they'll be doing that next week.
Okay.
Our survey, which I strongly encourage folks to take, it'll be open until Monday, June 20th. I think that's Monday, till
Mhm.
June 20th. Really will help us understand as well what we need to consider and look at. And so our city staff, through our performance analytics group, will be looking at the survey data.
Okay. So then what's our time? What's your time? Not limit, but what's the timing then? Once you get the numbers crunched, then you start writing. And then I would imagine something has to go to the council or maybe a committee before it goes to the council. What's that process look like?
So I expect to have the draft assessment ready for public review
Mhm.
by July 12th.
Okay.
And so once that is issued to the public, and it'll be issued on our website, and I'll send out an email to anyone who is interested in receiving it, we'll be going to what is called the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Relations City Council Committee.
Oh, man.
And I believe that is on July 13th.
Wow.
If you Google Cannabis Equity Listening Session, City of San Diego, the entire schedule is on there. And that'll have active links on how residents can engage via Zoom and provide public testimony at the hearing. So once we go as an informational item to hear from council members about the general recommendations that'll be included in the report, we are planning to go to the Planning Commission as an informational item in August.
Okay.
Once we go there, we go back to ED and IR, that's that city council committee,
Okay.
on September 7th. And then we are scheduled to be in front of the full council on September 22nd.
And when you come before the city council, what are they going to be voting on?
We will be requesting that they adopt recommendations contained in the assessment report.
Whatever it says.
Yes. And then also adopt the assessment report, which is critical because we will have to provide that to the state of California to satisfy our grant requirements. That lets us then be eligible to apply for grant funding by the end of this year.
So how much money are we talking about in that case?
Potentially millions.
Millions of dollars?
Potentially.
Okay.
It's a formula base.
Right.
I haven't seen the formula yet, but looking at what other jurisdictions have received, they've received significant funding from the state.
And that money is going to be used to help people to open a business, or is this more research?
This is not more research. This would be to help fund education and training programs.
Okay.
Community-based education and training programs. This would be to help hopefully provide seed capital.
Okay. For a business.
For a business.
Okay.
Oh, and I should note the name we've developed for our program.
Okay.
It's the Cannabis Social Equity and Economic Development Program.
Man,
Cannabis, hold on a second.
Okay.
Cannabis Seed Program.
Cannabis Seed Program. Oh, who thought of that? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So a mother of 16-year-old twins and a creative thinker.
I tried to be on occasion.
Okay, that sounds great. Now,
I think it's catchy, don't you?
I'm with you all the way. But
San Diego's Cannabis Seed Program?
Seed Program. But, I was with you the first time I met you. So, I mean, come on. But I think that it is catchy. And I think what you're doing is bringing to light something that's very, very important. And what I'm hoping is the same thing I think you're hoping, that more people will want to get involved. And whether you know a lot or not, get involved, find out, so that you have a say in what's going to happen. Or at least I mean, I hate to think that things would happen here in San Diego with respect to cannabis, and then somebody would ask the residents, well, what's going on in your city with respect to cannabis? And they say, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a cardinal sin. So if folks want to get in touch with you, how do they do that? What do they?
They can send me an email,
okay,
lngates@sandiego.gov. They can call me.
Okay.
I'm 619-871-7294 is my cell phone.
And I can testify that Deputy Director Laura Gates will respond to you pretty doggone quick. She's a lot better than I am with my email.
And I'll tell you, we are making upgrades to our cannabis website. And so if you want to learn more about, what the cannabis space is in San Diego right now, go to our cannabis website and take a look. There's great GIS maps there, geographic information system maps, that help you map out potential spots. All the rules and regulations that are currently there, that are in place right now, are there. And so I think it's a really good resource for folks.
Well, your department is a great resource for people that want to get into the business or find out about cannabis in San Diego. So I'm encouraging everyone to reach out to your department and find out what's going on so they can stay up with the latest that's going on in the city of San Diego with respect to cannabis. Is there anything else that you feel like we need to know about cannabis and your department here in San Diego?
I think one of the big issues that I'm addressing right now is delivery services. And so that is a really interesting topic that I am exploring that folks really don't realize the impact it's having on our cannabis economy here in San Diego.
And that impact is?
Well, the state of California allows out-of-city delivery into different jurisdictions.
Right.
So I've done an analysis and determined that there's about 84 delivery services outside of the city of San Diego
You're kidding.
that deliver into San Diego.
Wow.
And so if you can imagine what that does to dilute folks who have gone through the process to get a cannabis outlet permit and who do offer delivery services, it's really challenging because many of those out-of-city delivery services don't pay the requisite tax. And that is a really big problem for us. They also potentially, if you're coming out of commerce and you're guaranteeing a 30-minute delivery into San Diego, I'm not sure how that happens. So we're looking and delving into that conversation. There is state law currently that is being discussed where the limit for the quote unquote ice cream truck, and I'm sure you're familiar with that term, where people pack product into a large vehicle and drive it down. That limit right now is $5,000 a day. I believe it's supposed to go to 10,000 per this new state law that is being discussed. And so that's really having a potential impact on our economy. And I think it's one of the largest areas that we really need to think about. People think that a cannabis outlet, citing those locations with all the parameters and ensuring that they're away from sensitive uses is a really big issue. But I really think that the out-of-city delivery services are a bigger issue. And we really need to figure out how to address that through proactive enforcement.
It sounds like they undercut the local legal market.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. I mean, they undercut the small business, the social equity applicant or a small business owner who has opened up and is selling, his product or her product out of their store. And here's somebody that comes from
Humboldt.
Oh my gosh, that far away.
Possibly El Centro, Humboldt, Commerce.
Oh my gosh. And not to mention the tax to take out of the city.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that their product is cheaper too.
I haven't engaged in any of them. I just know that it exists. And the way we found that research, by the way, is we looked at the weeder, which is from the reader.
Okay.
And, it's very simple. It's there, plain as day. And I had my staff go through that exercise to really take a look at, who's advertising in the city of San Diego and who's actually in the market.
I'd like to bring you back and find out, what's happened and also what you've done with respect to this delivery system and how that has undercut the market here in San Diego. So I'm hoping you will agree to do that.
I absolutely agree to come back. It would be my pleasure.
Fantastic. Well, Laura, it has been a distinct pleasure to have you with me today. So thank you very much, Laura Gates, Deputy Director of the Cannabis Division for the City of San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to hear more Cannabis Enlightened with Dr. Leroy, be sure to visit us online at cannabisenlightened.com and subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. Cannabis Enlightened is produced in San Diego, California, and presented by March and Ash at marchandash.com. On behalf of Dr. Leroy, I'm Chris Cantori, and thank you for listening.
Media.